Hello everyone and welcome to another game you guys suggested from yesterday's St. Louis Blitz tournament. The rapid section finished and Fabiano won the rapid section, but the overall winner is the one who wins the most points in rapid and Blitz combined. Levon got second place in rapid and he's doing extremely well in Blitz. So this is one of the games most of you requested, and it really is a fine one. Also one of the reasons why I chose the quote above the board by Johannes Tukatot. Of course, all of you know who our good friend Johannes is. Chess is the struggle against error, and especially Blitz chess. Blitz chess is definitely one of the biggest struggles against error. I hope we don't see, bullet chess over the board anytime soon in the future, but you never know. So it's a really wonderful game. Hope you guys will enjoy it. Some extra news. One of the founders of Lotus Chess, Rafael, is coming to visit me today, probably in about an hour and a half, here in my hometown of Križevci in Croatia. And we're going to be discussing all sorts of stuff, regarding history, art, literature, chess, amongst other things. Who will win in the fight against, let's say, Dricus and Hamzat. So if you have any questions regarding anything, feel free to ask them, and I will relay them over to Rafael. I've already introduced him. He's he's one of the German dudes, the guy on the right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will send them over to him. And also, if you still haven't tried Lotus Chess, first link in the description below. Start improving your chess even today. Now, getting back to the game, Fabi with white opens with knight to f3. And this is already second game of the Blitz they've played. In the first game, it was a really crazy game. I think 94 moves. Levon won a crazy drawn endgame where Fabi thought that he had a stalemate, but he didn't have stalemate. He just gave up the bishop for nothing, and or rather, he just gave up the knight for nothing, and he was left in a lost position. But now Fabi has white, and he wants to retaliate. We have knight f3. He opts for the reti, knight to f6, and pawn to c4. We have pawn to b6. Levon getting ready to fianchetto his dark square bishop, or rather light square bishop. Pawn to g3 and pawn to c5. We have bishop to g2, bishop to b7, and castles kingside. So we're in some sort of a symmetrical English now. We have pawn to g6, knight to c3, and bishop to g7. We have pawn to d4, c captures, and queen captures. Looks a bit odd, as you do have some discoveries on the queen, and just not very good ones. Otherwise, you might lose that bishop. And knight to h5 doesn't really seem like it's a useful move. So pawn to d6, we have rook to d1, and knight b to d7. We have bishop to e3, pawn to a6, and rook a to c1. So everything is nicely developed. All of the pieces are now fully operational. Levon has yet to develop, and he chooses a very interesting way to do that. He plays rook c8, pawn to b3, and castles kingside. Again, very normal stuff. Queen to h4, and now rook to e8. We have pawn to h3, and now usually everyone just goes rook to c7. It's a very natural way of developing, because you can bring your queen to a8. You have this queen-bishop battery, so you can counter white's very strong light square bishop, and then you can bring the other rook to c8 if needed. If not, you can, have some e6, e5 in the future, or e6, d5, whatever. It's a very flexible idea. But not Levon. Levon goes queen to c7, and this is already a little bit weird. And it is now, as of move 14, that we have a completely new game. And, usually when, you see a player playing something weird, you think it's a mistake. When you see Levon Aronian playing something weird, you know that, trouble is on the way. So knight to d5 by Fabi. He wants to open up the c file. If Levon trades, then you can't even give up the queen for two rooks, as the bishop is also guarding the rook on c1. So it either stays there, or you're not going to have a very good trade. We have queen to b8. Now Levon gets the queen off of the c file. Bishop to h6. Fabi, of course, goes after the strong dark square bishop. We have pawn to b5 and knight to g5. Fabi just getting everything into the attack, and you have to be somewhat careful here. For example, e6 seems like a very natural idea, but all of a sudden you lose the d6 pawn. Point being that after captures with check and captures, you trade on b7, and the d6 pawn is undefended. So you have to be a little bit careful here. So Levon trades on c4, b captures on c4. We have b captures, bishop captures on d5, bishop captures, we have knight captures, and now bishop captures on g7, where you could trade, but also you could just bring the knight back. Knight 5 back to f6, and now bishop to h6 by Fabi. a clean way of keeping things equal would be just to play captures. And then after captures, you play pawn to c5, and you are very happy here. Point being that after, let's say, captures, it seems like you've lost the pawn, but there's queen c4 attacking f7 and a6. Once f7 is being taken care of, you're going to capture on a6, and you're also going to have a passed a pawn. But okay, this is Blitz, so we're not going to overanalyze it. We have bishop back to h6 by Fabi, and now queen to b2. Levon putting pressure on a2 and on that e2 pawn, and Fabi plays knight to e4. Gives up the e2 pawn. We have queen captures on e2, and now rook to e1, where Levon could go for queen to f3, and it's a very nice square for the queen, but instead he goes queen to h5. He said, all right, I'm doing fine in the tournament, I just won a pawn, let's trade queens, Fabi. And Fabi goes for it. He plays queen captures on h5. Much more solid would be to first give a check. Knight captures, and then after knight captures, then you trade, and then after knight captures, you again execute this pawn to c5 move. It looks impossible because Levon always has it guarded twice, but the point being, after captures, you have rook e5. And you can't really defend the pawn. You can push it, the rook follows. You can push, the rook follows. You can push, the rook follows. You can't push any further. And then rook captures on c2 will just win the pawn back. So, okay, after queen h5, Fabi traded on the spot. Captures, captures, and now king to g2. And Levon goes knight to g7. We have rook c3. As you know, that c4 pawn will become weak very, very quickly. Knight to e6. We have rook e to c1 and rook to c6. Now Levon also getting ready to double up on the c file. Pawn to h4, we have rook e to c8 and knight to d2. Defending, but there's no real way to defend. The knight is coming to e5, and of course you always have that d5 to worry about. So knight to e5, king to h3, and pawn to d5. And Fabi already being down a pawn, this is a dreadful position to have, especially when you have the white pieces and you've already lost the game to Levon in the first half of the Blitz. Rook to e1, the knight has been weakened, but doesn't matter. Knight captures on c4, knight captures, d captures. Now Levon is up 2 pawns, and it is merely a matter of proving that you can win this because the position is winning. So pawn to a4, we have pawn to f6 and the bishop back to d2. We have rook to d8 attacking the bishop on d2 and bishop to e3. We have king to f7, rook e to c1 and rook d back to c8 with Levon having nothing to prove really. He has 1:30 on the clock. Fabi has 6 seconds, and Levon can just slowly but surely improve his position and then win however he wants. Pawn to a5, we have knight to f8. Time to start pushing those pawns. Rook to b1 and now knight to d7. We have king to g2, pawn to h5 by Levon, rook to b4 and just knight to e5. Again, no real way for Fabi to make any progress here. Rook to b7, putting pressure on that e7 pawn, although without much relevance. Rook 8 to c7, kicking the rook back. Rook to b6, hoping to create a pass pawn, but just knight e7, kicking the rook back. We have rook to b4 and now pawn to e5. And this is Levon is much better here. He is much better on time as well, but you still have to play fast. You have to make Fabi play fast and try and make a mistake. King f3, we have king to e6, rook back to b1, and pawn to f5 now taking away all of the squares from the white king. King back to e2, we have knight to f6 and rook to c2. We have knight to d5 now, putting pressure on the bishop as well. Bishop to g5 and rook to c5. We have rook to b8 now, trying to get some checks in from behind, maybe even go after that g pawn, but very unlikely. Pawn to c3 and now rook to e8 with check. King f7, we have rook captures on e5, and here Levon makes a mistake. He plays rook captures on a5 and blunders his entire advantage away. Problem is Fabi has 2 seconds on the clock, so try to find the refutation in 2 seconds. If you found it, congratulations, you are a player of unmeasurable skill, but if you haven't, bishop to d8 is the move. Okay, so Levon blundered this, but Fabi didn't see it. And now you really don't have a good way of dealing with this. You can move the rook, let's say rook c to c5. You're going to win the exchange, captures, captures. Now you play pawn to f4, and now it is Fabi who would be playing for the win. But he missed it. He went rook to c1, and now Levon just plays pawn to c2. And now, even though the move is still possible, no longer works, because now after bishop to d8, you can just go knight c3 check, and okay, now you just lose on the spot. King f3, you can capture on e5. Okay, bishop can capture on c7, but rook e7, you attack the bishop. Once you move the bishop, there's knight e2, and that's it. You fork, let's say, the bishop and the rook. And if rook captures on c2, then you even have a nice knight to d4 fork. So yeah, after c2, king to d2 was played by Fabi, rook a to c5, and now rook back to e1. We have pawn to a5. Fabi also has a passed a pawn that he can push. Rook to a1, and now knight to b4. We have rook to a3. Fabi trying everything, but now Levon just promotes his pawn to a queen, and he was in this position on move 56 that Fabiano Caruana resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You're going to lose a clean rook, so after captures, there's rook captures on a5, for example, and okay, you can just go for a nice king hunt. Rook 1 to c2 check, let's say king to e3, rook to c3 check, king to f4, rook captures on f2 check, king to e5, and now whatever, just knight to c6 check. You can win the rook and checkmate the white king very, very soon after that. So, of course, there's no need for, Fabi to continue. He resigned here, and Levon wins the second encounter as well. And that puts him as he was second after the rapid section. Fabi won the rapid section, but the overall winner is none other than Levon Aronian, who wins by a 3-point lead ahead of second place Fabiano Caruana. So 24.5 points for Levon, 21.5 for Fabi, Maxime 21, Nodrbek 20.5, Wesley 19, Liam Le 18, Gukesh also 18, Lanier Dominguez Perez 15.5, Grigory Oparin 13, and Sam Shankland in last place with 9 points. So yeah, incredible stuff by Levon, and it was a very, very clean victory. Okay, he missed that one bishop to d8 move where, okay, Fabi had 2 seconds on the clock, but it's Blitz, We're not going to take anything away from him, as, he played brilliant chess. He defeated everyone, and he wins his second super tournament of the year, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's not because he's Levon Aronian. He's a former 2800. He, he did pretty much everything other than becoming world champion, and we expect great play from him. But it is amazing that he can still produce such games. He never fails to deliver, and he always plays brilliant chess. I don't think he's even happy if he wins, if he hasn't pushed something in a weird place, sacrificed something. He just loves he loves beauty in life in general, and that's how he plays chess, and that's why we love watching Levon Aronian play. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, big congratulations to Levon. Hope he wins another super tournament this year, at least one more, and maybe even more than that, but we'll see. If he continues playing like this, sky's the limit. I would like to thank Alexander Schaefer, Milos Knežević, Gerhard Henkelman, Amar Mirza, and Derek King for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.